Welcome back to our channel, folks. I tell you what, I have been watching the folks in this town for a long time, and I have seen my fair share of family squabbles, but the things happening right now are truly something else. As a man who has lived through his own share of ups and downs, watching these parents and children struggle just tugs right at my heartstrings. It makes you realize that no matter how much money or power someone has, family problems are universal. And the mistakes we make as parents can leave lasting scars on the ones we love the most. Let us talk about that absolutely heart-wrenching scene at the Metro Court pool. Drew Kane, a man who usually tries to keep his head screwed on straight, completely and utterly lost his temper. I have seen a lot of angry fathers in my time, men who let their protective instincts get the better of them, but the way Drew went after young Danny Morgan was just plain tough to watch. He marched right up to that boy with a face like thunder and laid into him, demanding that he stay far, far away from his daughter Scout. He did not care who was watching or who was listening. He just let his anger take the wheel and drove right over that boy's feelings. And the absolute worst part of this entire spectacle, he did it right in front of poor little Scout. You could just see the bright light go out in that sweet girl's eyes. It breaks my heart into a million pieces because, as we all know, kids absorb every single thing around them. They are like little emotional sponges. Seeing her father act like a bull in a china shop over a simple, innocent friendship is going to leave a deep, lasting mark on her soul. It is one thing for a father to be protective of his little girl. We all understand that down-home instinct, but it is a whole different ballgame when you start publicly humiliating people and isolating your child from the one she cares about. It was a downright embarrassing display, and Scout did not deserve to be put in the middle of it. Now, thank goodness Jason Morgan was right there when this whole mess went down. Jason, who is always as cool as a cucumber, no matter how hot the fire gets, tried his absolute best to step in and defuse the ticking time bomb that was Drew Kane. Jason has a way of staying calm, keeping his voice steady, and trying to bring the temperature down in the room. But Drew was acting as stubborn as a mule and simply refused to listen to a single word of reason. Have you ever tried talking sense into a solid brick wall? That is exactly what Jason was dealing with at the pool that day. Drew was so blinded by his own rage and his desperate need to control the situation that he could not see the massive damage he was doing to his own family. Seeing that getting through to Drew was a completely lost cause, Jason did the smart, mature thing. Without raising his voice or adding any more fuel to the fire, he gently instructed Danny to head on over to Bobby's place, grab a good old-fashioned burger, and just wait for him to come pick him up later. It was a classic Jason move, stepping up to protect the kid from being caught in any more of the emotional crossfire. But let me tell you, the tension between Jason and Drew in that moment was so incredibly thick you could have cut it with a butter knife. These two grown men, who share blood but are so often miles apart in spirit, are heading for a massive, unavoidable collision, and everyone in town can feel it coming like a summer storm. After the dust finally settled and the boys walked away, little Scout was left sitting by the edge of the pool, crying her eyes out. I wanted to reach right through the television screen, give her a big warm hug, and tell her everything was going to be all right. It is a terrible, heavy burden for a child to feel like they are the root cause of a massive family war. While she was sitting there, wiping away those bitter, painful tears, who should happen to walk by but young Rocco Falconeri. Now, let me take a minute to talk about Rocco. That boy has an old soul, bless his heart. He is wise well beyond his years, the kind of quiet kid who watches the world carefully and understands far more than the adults ever give him credit for. He did not just walk past a crying girl. He stopped, saw a friend in deep pain, and sat down to keep her company. The conversation those two young kids shared was truly profound and heartbreaking to witness. Scout just opened up and poured her little heart out to Rocco. She explained how her dad is desperately trying to control every single relationship she has in her life. She is feeling completely cut off from her family, and that is a very dark, dangerous place for a young girl to find herself. Drew is not just keeping her away from Danny. He is actively putting up massive brick walls between Scout and her grandmother, Alexis Davis, as well as her aunts. Those women are her flesh and blood, but more importantly, they are her living, breathing connection to Danny's mother. When you lose someone you love, you naturally want to hold on tight to the people who remind you of them. By pushing Danny and the Davis women away, Drew is essentially erasing Scout's precious ties to her own family history. It is a crying shame, and the poor girl feels like she has been stranded on a deserted island all by herself. And the control does not even stop there. Drew is also trying with all his might to put a wedge between Scout and the entire Quartermain family, especially her uncle Jason. It is as if Drew wants to put his daughter in a tiny glass bubble where only he gets to decide who is allowed to look at her or speak to her. But kids are not property, and you simply cannot fence them in like cattle. Scout knows this deep down, and the frustration is just eating her up inside. Rocco sat there and listened to every single word, nodding along in perfect understanding, because he knows exactly what it feels like to be caught right in the middle of adult foolishness. Rocco has his own heavy cross to bear when it comes to family drama. He loves his folks deeply, but he is completely fed up with the blatant double standards in his house. His mother, Lulu, is constantly cracking the whip and strictly forbidding him from having certain relationships. Yet, in the very same breath, she turns around and allows Charlotte Cassadine to go live with her father, Valentine. To a smart, observant kid like Rocco, that hypocrisy sticks out like a sore thumb. He is looking at his mother's rules and wondering why on earth there is one strict set of rules for him and a completely different, lenient set for Charlotte. It is enough to make any kid want to pull their hair out in frustration. So when Scout is sitting there talking about feeling trapped and suffocated by her father's rules, Rocco is right there in the trenches with her. They are like two peas in a pod, strongly bonded by the shared misery of having parents who just do not seem to get it. They both feel unheard, unseen, and completely misunderstood by the people who are supposed to protect them the most. Given all this heavy emotional baggage they are carrying, would it really surprise anyone if Scout decided she had finally had enough and tried to run away from home? I have seen it happen 100 times over the years. A kid feels totally cornered. They feel like nobody is listening to their cries for help, and their natural flight instinct kicks in. They just want to take off running to find some peace and quiet. But here is the real kicker of the situation. Rocco would never, ever let her go out into that big, dangerous world all by herself. He is far too protective and far too grounded for that. If Scout decides to pack a little bag and hit the road, you better believe Rocco's going to be right there walking beside her every step of the way. He knows she would not last a single day out there alone, and he cares too much to let her try. The thought of these two young, vulnerable kids sneaking off secretly to some island or hidden hideout is both absolutely terrifying and completely understandable from their perspective. They are not trying to be bad kids. They are just desperately looking for a quiet place where they can finally breathe without an adult hovering over their shoulder, dictating their every move. But oh boy, the chaos that their disappearance would cause back home is almost too massive to comprehend. Let us just play this scenario out for a second. Imagine the absolute sheer panic when Drew Kane realizes his precious daughter is missing. Do you honestly think he is going to sit down, take a deep breath, and try to think logically about where she might have gone? Not a chance in heaven. The man is already seeing red whenever the names Jason or Danny are even mentioned. The very second he finds Scout's bed empty, he is going to jump straight to the wildest, most extreme conclusion possible. He will not even pause to catch his breath before he is screaming from the rooftops that Jason and Danny Morgan kidnapped his little girl. It is the classic case of a guilty conscience desperately looking for a scapegoat. Drew knows deep down in his heart that his own harsh actions pushed her away, but his stubborn pride will never let him admit that out loud. Instead, he will point the finger of blame directly at the very people he has been trying so hard to keep her away from. I can just picture Drew storming into the police station like a hurricane, demanding to see Dante Falconeri. He will be ranting and raving, demanding that Dante arrest Jason and Danny immediately without a shred of evidence. It is a pot calling the kettle black situation if I have ever seen one. But oh, the bitter irony of it all. Because while Drew is losing his mind over Scout, Dante is going to be dealing with his own living nightmare. Rocco will be missing too. Can you imagine the look of pure shock on Dante's face when he realizes his own son has likely run off with Drew's daughter? It is going to be an absolute madhouse. And speaking of a madhouse, let us talk about Lulu's reaction to Rocco going missing. According to all the signs we are seeing, Lulu is going to completely lose her grip on reality for a minute. Instead of looking at the facts, she is going to point her finger squarely at Britt, accusing her of kidnapping Rocco. Bless her heart, Lulu is barking up the completely wrong tree. Britt is not the villain here. She is actually out there desperately searching for Rocco, trying to bring him home safe and sound. But when sheer panic sets in, common sense goes right out the window. It is going to be a wild goose chase, with all the adults pointing fingers at everyone except themselves. This whole messy, heartbreaking situation is rapidly building up to a massive explosion. The tension between Drew and Jason has been simmering on the back burner for way too long, and this missing children crisis is going to turn the heat all the way up to a rolling boil. It has already been confirmed that a major face-to-face confrontation between the two of them is on the horizon. This is not just going to be a simple war of words. This is years of deep resentment, jealousy, and fundamental differences finally coming to a head. Drew firmly feels like Jason is a massive threat to his family, and Jason is just quietly trying to protect the people he loves from Drew's increasingly erratic behavior. When these two finally face off, it is going to shake Port Charles to its very core. Sitting here thinking about all this, it really makes you reflect deeply on the complex nature of family